choose change before change chooses us? Well, I think the answer is yes, otherwise I wouldn't be here to talk to you about it. But unfortunately, change chose me first. And having gone through that experience, I say gone through, I go through it still. It's part of my life. I really, really want to help other people to take the bull by the horns, be proactive, and do something about that little voice that talks to us sometimes, but most of the time is shut off by, oh, well, I couldn't possibly do that because I have to take so-and-so to football, or I couldn't possibly do that because it would be spending too much money on myself, or whatever. In the old days, I used to be a management consultant, and I worked for big corporates, and I came and stood up in front of mostly middle-aged men and talked to them about communication, I talked to them about coaching, I talked to them about how to have better relationships with the people that they worked with. I helped them to learn about themselves. And so some of that I have kept in my new career. You know, some of that is kind of really OTT, never give up and all that, you know, but actually, to me, it talks of two things. One is yourself, and the other is support. You cannot do things by yourself. How strange that the nature of life is change, yet the nature of human beings is to resist change. And how ironic that the difficult times we fear might ruin us are the very ones that can break us open and help us blossom into who we were meant to be. Which is from the book Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. When I was reading that quote, I thought, oh, I know, I'll get my journal out from when I was going through the illness and the treatment. And the first thing I read was Thursday, 3rd of March, 2011. In the space of 5 minutes, I heard, I might cry. In the space of 5 minutes, I heard the words cancer, chemotherapy, surgery, radiotherapy, lymph glands mastectomy. Words I had never associated with before. Words for other poor people who had to experience dreadful things, and words for mums who died young. So I never would have thought, having written those words and seeing that quote and being where I am today, I didn't think that I was going to get there. But I did. It was truly horrific. That picture was taken by my daughter, and it was the only picture of me without any hair. We were camping in France, and this is just kind of illustrative of how I dealt with the whole thing. I finished chemotherapy. I had 4 weeks between chemotherapy and a mastectomy, and I said, the kids are going to have a summer holiday. They're not going without a summer holiday. The kids are going to have a summer holiday. Everything is normal. And off we went camping in France. We shouldn't have gone. It was not a stressful time, but it was just, I did it for everybody else. I wanted everybody else to have their summer holiday, and what I should have been doing was just resting at home. There is no history of breast cancer in my family. My breast cancer was not hormone receptive. So it wasn't caused by artificial hormones or anything else like that in our foods and our environment. It was a very aggressive form of triple negative cancer, and there was no reason, as far as I could see, for it happening to me. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I wasn't overweight. It just grew, and it had probably been growing for about 6 to 9 months by the time I found it. And I think it also led me, like you, Sarah, to think, well, what have I been doing to myself to get myself into this state? What has happened? And during the process of recovery, I worked out that I had been neglecting myself. I didn't eat a terrible diet, but I didn't eat a fantastic one either. I didn't do anything that made me happy. I looked after my children, and my children's growth made me happy, but I didn't do anything just for me. It was a real feeling of, I am not entitled to these things, which is essentially a way of saying, I don't matter. Everybody else matters more than me. And I think, I don't know, because you can't prove these things, but I think that that had a lot to do with where I ended up. So the biggest thing that cancer brought me was enforced rest. And I don't know about you, but I'm not very good at doing nothing. So those are all qualities that you will share with the people in your lives, whether you believe it or not. Those are qualities that you share and you give out to people. Stop, telling yourself, oh, I'm this, I'm that, or I'm not this or that, and just be who you are. Just be. And sometimes just being is great, and sometimes just being is a bit of a shittier version of you, and that's fine. We're human, right? We're not supposed to be perfect. Perfect is weird. We don't want to be perfect. And striving for that kind of thing is a road that never ends, basically. So be mindful of who you are and what you bring to the world. So you can keep your list of 10 things and make it 10 and work on it and really believe it. And if you want to go a step further, hey, how about actually asking people who know you, what are 10 things you like about me? Or what are some of the things that you like about me? What do I bring you? Be brave about those things. People want to share things with you if you ask them. I spoke about my diagnosis and treatment so far, my concern about surgery and what I'm going to look like, my feelings of fear about dying and leaving the children, my feelings of loss of control, of not being the mother that I want to be, my feelings of wanting the cancer to be a learning experience and to be able to make changes. And that was very strong, that feeling of I am not going back to what used to be. And I had a very strong aversion to going back to doing the work that I was doing. We did manage to eke out a few conversations, and I was surprised to learn that he supported me in not going back to what I was doing, and that he was prepared to support us financially, which was a very big thing for me because I have always contributed, and I felt less of a person if I wasn't contributing. And I really devalued all of the other contributions that I was making. Managing the home, looking after the children, doing the washing, that kind of standard stuff. And so that was an interesting point for me. So there was a history in my life of, I guess, aiming for perfection, not getting there, feeling terrible about it, and sinking into depression. The whole experience of going through those treatments is kind of what led me to think, right, I'm not going back to what I was. And I am going to look after myself. And I am going to cook lovely nutritional meals for my children so that they don't get cancer and all of these things. And so I kind of, in a way, I didn't go back to what I was, but I also put more pressure on myself to start doing things differently and start, I'm going to make this whole new change, it's going to be amazing. Well, one of the things that I wasn't expecting and that happened was when I finished my treatment, my chemotherapy, and I had my mastectomy, and I was back to normal. Everything was back to normal, right? Yeah, everything was back to normal. Woohoo! I can drive, I can take the kids to wherever they need to go, my hair's growing. And then in the November, which was about 3 months after the mastectomy, I sank into the most severe clinical depression that I've experienced. Every week I met my therapist and we spoke about things. And I also, throughout the time, just before I was diagnosed, I'd started yoga classes. And throughout my whole treatment, apart from the times when I couldn't kind of lift my arms and stuff, I did yoga. And those two things, the yoga and the talking therapy, were kind of the linchpin and the basis for establishing the proper change, taking time for me and establishing what was important for me. And so by increments, by little small steps, I was able to make small pieces of change. And if you don't look after yourself, you cannot look after other people properly, and you cannot sustain the way that you are. Something will happen. It might be illness, it might be an accident, it might be a divorce, it might be whatever. You know, you cannot sustain neglecting yourself. And that may sound a bit harsh, but to me, I really do believe that I was neglecting myself. There are so many people who are diagnosed with cancer. There has got to be something that is going on, you know, that is to do with how we are treating ourselves. You know, it's not as simple as, you know, genetics. There is a lot more to it than that. So I call these small steps that I started to take my enablers. Use a very corporate word, enablers. And there were a few. So like I said, one of them was yoga. I had a fantastically nurturing teacher who gave me time, who honoured me as a woman, and she is just wonderful. And I am not a kind of typical hippie yoga type person. And I found kind of all the whole meditation thing and all the philosophy and the spiritual stuff was about woo. But I couldn't deny that it gave me space and peace. And so I spent a lot of time doing yoga and taking time for me. And it was during a small relaxation at the end of her class one day where I was lying on the floor and I thought, God, I think I could be a yoga teacher. I think I could do this. And at the end of the lesson, she came up to me and she went, Natalie, I think you could be a yoga teacher. I was like, whoa! She's a freaky psychic woman. How did she know? What was she thinking? You know, and it was very affirming for me because I thought, well, hang on a minute, there is something here. You know, the universe is maybe talking to me. And what I found during my yoga was that I needed to move my body. My body needed physical movement. And I had to acknowledge that I was neglecting something in my past, which was dance. Dance was a huge part of my life when I was growing up. From the age of 2 to the age of 23, I danced. And from the age of 23 onwards, nada, apart from at parties, you know. And going through the cancer, being so weak that I couldn't even lift my arm over my head, and doing the yoga, it suddenly made me realise I have not been moving my body. What is wrong with me? I haven't been moving my body, and clearly I've spent such a long time of my life moving my body. It's something that I am meant to do. And so, as well as doing the yoga, I started going to adult ballet classes, adult jazz classes, not jazz playing, but jazz dancing. And it was the most liberating and fulfilling thing I had done for ages. And it made me so happy. So finding the thing or the things that you were passionate about before responsibility came along, before life, mortgage, whatever happened, is really, really important. So I mentioned that Anna, my sister, came and stayed with us, and she is a kind of hippie yoga person who's very alternative, and she is a healer. She uses crystals and Reiki and facial reflexology. And so she brought into our house a very different feel, a very non-corporate feel. Myself and my husband are kind of achieve. And I had to succumb to it because I couldn't do anything else. And she was just this most peaceful, supportive, compassionate, loving person that I kind of wasn't used to. And I almost pushed it away a little bit. But she persevered, and thank goodness she did. and my mum as well. And what they both taught me was, you are entitled. You are entitled to space, time, happiness, doing the things that you want to do, that you love to do. You are entitled as much as your children are entitled, as much as your friends, your husband, your partner, whoever. You are entitled. And again, she gave me lots of feedback. So she made me realise, hang on a minute, I am a strong person. I'm not weak. I am a strong person, and I've done this, this, and this in my life that proves it. And so it was a very cathartic experience that made me realise I did have strength. This is in April. Where to start? There are many things I want to record. The first thing that springs to mind is just how amazingly kind Flynn is. This morning, when I asked him to tidy his special toys, blanket, Iggle Piggle, Taggies, the ones that he sleeps with. This morning, when I asked him to tidy his special toys away ready for bed that evening, he said, "No, Mummy, you can snuggle them until the winter when you're better. I'll just cuddle myself if I have a bad dream." And that just says it all, really. They have been an inspiration. They have been amazing. And they have propelled me on to do the things that I've chosen to do. So I am now a yoga teacher. I teach bar concept, I teach fit steps. Tula thinks that this is absolutely incredible. She sometimes comes along to yoga with me and does her kind of little versions of it. And to me, that is me honouring what I spoke about in my first counselling session, which is cancer will change me. Cancer will change me, and I am not going to let the past happen again. I wanted to give you the starting point of where you can work from. So by identifying certain things, you can say, okay, well, this part of my life needs some attention. And again, it's looking for those small steps, those small enablers, and not using it as an opportunity to beat yourself up. So for me, it was watching Strictly and finding a way of bringing dance into my life. I remember speaking to my sister, and she was going, "Nat, you're living the dream. This is what you said when you were a child. You said, I'm going to have my own dance school, and la la la, you know." And, you know, it happened. And it isn't as romantic and amazing as it sounds, because of course there were stresses involved and, you know, things like that. But I was being true to my heart. Energy and joy and being alive, feeling alive. And to me, that's what dance brought me.